So Phyllis, if we could just start with really the draws for you of adapting Patricia Highsmith's novel for the screen.
Well, the big, the big draw was, of course, that this novel presents a portrait of lesbian life that doesn't end in tragedy, suicide, the usual tropes. Even when they were written by women, this was tended to be the style or the custom. And Pat Highsmith just broke right through that with this single book. And, of course, she wrote it under a pseudonym, but she had to publish it under a pseudonym. So that, number one, but even more than that is her refusal to psychologize about the character's sexuality. They are just gay, even when one of them doesn't know it. But when she sees it, she knows it, absolutely, and it's not a problem. It's a problem for everyone else. So these two things made it both fresh and preserved the reason to do it in period, which allows us to comment without being crass or overt. And it allowed for gestural exploration of falling in love. So that was all very exciting. And of course, the ability or the need to create a full world for both characters was very exciting.
Obviously, in adapting for another medium, and you had the length of the film to consider.
Yeah.
You had the length of the film for one thing to consider.
Yeah.
There were elements that you needed to sort of cut, I suppose, from the novel
Yeah.
or modify. What were your guiding principles as you went about, adapting the book in that way?
Right. Well, I mean, filmic structure is so different. In a novel, you can talk about 3 years in 2 sentences. Not the same here. But luckily, Pat's novel is constructed in a sort of bizarre real time and basically in someone's mind. So the major thing was to strip away, and you've read the book, there is a road trip following the road trip in the novel, which is interesting, but really would slow a film's narrative down to a snail's pace when really what people want to be with is the relationship at the core of the book. So that was the decision, what is at the core? It's these two. And their attendant difficulties along the way. Once that decision was made, other structural decisions were easy. And then some were, quite frankly, just decisions I made, such as I refused to have voiceover, alienating and too literary for something like this, except there's a little bit of voiceover, but it's a character reading a letter, And so after that decision was made, then I really had to work hard to create scenes that were referred to. I mean, we don't ever see these scenes in real time in the book. We see, and then I heard Carol had a custody meeting, or I heard this or that. So that's great fun. At least it was for me to do that.
And there's brilliantly written dialogue in the film, but there are also moments where you use dialogue with a beautiful economy, I think, and maybe there are times when you don't have a line. I know you know that you've got some great actresses who are going to be performing the work. So can you just talk about that element?
Well, I mean, that was one of the great thrills of adapting. You are always asked to overwrite things, and this required a cinematic language that relied on gestural occupancy of space. So the script is full of these silent, behaviorally described scenes that, of course, could have been done in terrible ways, but weren't, because we had great actors and great director and so on. It just all came together in that way.
Phyllis Nagy, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey,